The following video is a fan-made review. My Hero Academia is owned and created by Funimation, Studio Bones, and Kohei Horikoshi. We encourage our viewers to support the official content.
Hey everyone, I'm your host, Cornet Chris, and welcome to Review This, where we talk about animation and storytelling in any shape or form. Let's get it started. Have you ever wanted superpowers? Like, honest to goodness superpowers? You know, shooting lightning from your fist, or using shadows to teleport, or even eating to absorb the powers of others. That one is more disturbing than you think. Anyway, this sounds awesome, right? But how crazy would it be if it's not just you that got powers, but the entire world? Better to be a hell of a story.
However, that story's not where we as the audience start. We're a couple of decades past that. No, our true journey in this world begins with this kid here, Izuku Midoriya. One of the few people in this world without a power. Not even a lame one like Arm Fall Off Boy from the Legion of Superheroes.
For those of you able to dodge information better than Kid Gohan can dodge attacks, or who've heard your anime-loving friends go on and on about the show and want to know what's up, allow me to better explain the premise a bit more clearly. For a brief overview, here's our Field Tech Mike.
Thanks, Chris. I've been out in the field for a very long time. I've seen a lot of strange things. People with engines for legs, spooky bird demons, even a guy that makes meatballs out of people. We've come a really long way from that shiny baby a couple generations back. While these abilities sound cool, they usually come with a limit, mostly based on the user's physical abilities. My quirk, Awesome Sauce, allows me to masterfully make any piece of food after I eat it. But it also comes with certain limits, based upon how much I can make per day. I could easily feed an entire army rice and beans, or cook myself a baked Alaska. There are three main types of quirks. Emitters, which modify substances and alters materials around the user. This could be anything from projectiles to modifying the cement beneath your feet. Transformation quirks allow the user to take on an alteration temporarily. This can include growth, hardening, or modification. The only exception is our meatball friend. Mutant quirks are more permanent and affect the user's appearance and add tools to their bodies. A second set of eyes doesn't sound too bad in a fight sometimes. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Mike. Now, the story of My Hero first began in July 2014 in Weekly Shonen Jump, a manga magazine in Japan that has brought us stories like One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. Since its premiere, My Hero has now been collected into 20 volumes of a standalone manga, resulting in 3 seasons of an anime with a more than possible 4th at the time of this video's release, and a movie that had a successful but limited run in theaters across the US. However, for the purposes of this video, we'll be focusing on the first season. Now, some of you are wondering, Chris, why are you talking about the first season, and not the series as a whole, or the kick-ass movie that came out? Well, aside from the fact that no one is working my mouth like a puppet elbow deep, it's mostly to go back to this series' beginnings and really take a good hard look at what drew so many people into this story in the first place. So let's really kick this off by talking about the reason this show was made in the first place: animation. My Hero Academia's animation was brought to us by Studio Bones, the same studio that brought us Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, Mob Psycho 100, Soul Eater, and Hero Man.
What? I liked Hero Man.
My Hero's animation is done beautifully well, and while nothing is perfect, some shots look downright gorgeous. The best showcase for the animation, especially with a show like this, is in its fight scenes. Even small-scale fights are handled great. Where other studios might decide to save the budget and not put as much effort into the simpler, not as bombastic fights, Bones really knows how to present the smaller moments just as well as the bigger ones. However, when the fight scenes go big, they go big. 2 scenes in particular really come to mind. One I'll avoid for spoiler reasons, but the other one is pretty much ripped straight out of the manga, and it looks so much better in motion than as a splash page.
One person we can thank for My Hero's great look is its key animator, Yutaka Nakamura.
Nakamura has worked on a lot of anime during his tenure as an animator, with one of his earliest known credits being Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, working on big name anime is not an amazing thing when it's down the line, but when one of your first credits is one of the biggest classics in the West, I mean, wow! Like, there is a lot to say about Eva, but the phrase, "the animation looks like utter garbage," is not one of them. At least not in confidence or by someone who outright just hates for hate's sake. But anyway, the whole thing aside, Nakamura has worked on plenty of other shows. The previously mentioned Soul Eater, Mob Psycho 100, but also Cowboy Bebop, Space Dandy, and Razafon.
Hold on. Now this show has a lot of characters, like so many that in the anime, they have these handy little name tags above the characters' heads that also describes their quirks. Kinda like this. As such, we're going to be focusing on the 3 characters that get the most attention/interest. These characters are Superhero Rock Lee, Superman, Japan, and Naruto, the Bully Saga. Okay, the characters aren't as shallow as those nicknames, but I didn't pick those names just based on looks. At least most of them aren't. Anyway, let's get down proper with our main character, Izuku Midoriya. Izuku is a self-proclaimed hero nerd, and due to his lack of a quirk and subsequent bullying, he has developed a bit of a self-confidence issue. That issue being, he has none. Despite this deep down, Izuku still dreams of being a hero, just like his idol, All Might.
Izuku in this first season is a bit of a crybaby, and while that does decrease greatly in later seasons, this was a major complaint at the start. However, what helps is that we see him struggle just as much even after his first big accomplishment. That struggle is felt throughout this entire season. I compared Izuku to Rock Lee at the start because just like Lee, he was born lacking something that is natural to everyone in their world. But through plenty of physical and mental work, plus a gift from his personal My Guy, Izuku strives to become the #1 hero.
Now speaking of Izuku's mentor and his gift, that brings us to the #1 hero, All Might!
All Might is the hero of this world. Most times when people think of a superhero, they think Superman. But in My Hero Academia, All Might is the name on everyone's lips. Now, in a scene that takes a lot longer to explain than I have time, All Might encounters Izuku and thinks of him as just another fan. Maybe a crazy one with a bit of guts, but still. After hearing how Izuku is a quirkless person, and how he wants to know if he can still be a hero, he says to him that his dream is too far beyond his reach. However, after Izuku rescues his soon-to-be rival/asshole, Bakugo, despite his fearful and quirkless nature, All Might is inspired by his bravery, and awards Izuku one shot at being a hero, by passing down his own quirk, One for All.
One for All as a quirk may seem as a bit of a MacGuffin just to give Izuku powers, and it does feel like that at times. But throughout the series we see how it's not an easily mastered ability, or fully understood by our main character. As we see that even before Izuku can be given One for All, he has to build himself up physically, or else his body will essentially explode. In the first season, All Might is a larger-than-life character, and I mean that both to the audience and the characters. All Might is the pillar of the hero community, and is such loved by heroes, would-be heroes, and hated by villains. Sometimes even vice versa. But the story will get to that. All Might is the source of inspiration for everyone in this world, especially for our main character. However, there is one other character that All Might inspired, that we should probably get to.
You know how they say first impressions are key? Well, our first impression of Bakugo was that he constantly antagonizes our main character, and treats him like if he just stepped on a piece of crap while walking on the sidewalk. So yeah, not the best. But then why did I compare him to Naruto if he's nothing like him? Well, there's a much longer explanation, but to be brief, Bakugo also having the looks of the annoying ninja clad in orange, he's also just as loud, boastful, and more than a bit quick to anger. However, where their differences start to appear is in Bakugo's skill. Bakugo isn't the underdog. Bakugo can back up what he says. Being born with a quirk that would make him a pretty badass hero, not to mention the fact that he himself is smart when it comes to both battle strategy and general intelligence. So why is someone that's on the path to be a hero treating the main character like he was a mosquito? Well, without diving too much into spoiler territory, Bakugo, from what we can tell in the first season, has been praised a lot as a child when his quirk first appeared. As such, he's got a bit of a swelled ego and most likely feels like he should be treated with apprehension and respect. However, when Izuku offers his hand in assistance, it's a bit of a blow to that ego. Because even a quirkless person like Izuku, thinking he can offer any sort of help to Bakugo, essentially brings him down.
So we've talked about the characters, and without retreading the same ground that we have with the plot, let's talk about the story, along with its creator, Kohei Horikoshi.
Horikoshi is a writer and illustrator who has found success more recently. However, he started with one-shot stories around 2007, before getting his shot with 2 manga. Omagadoki Zoo, which originally ran from 2010 to 2011, and the subject of today's video, My Hero Academia, which started in 2014. Horikoshi himself has said he loves American comic books. In a 2018 interview with San Diego Comic-Con with comicbook.com, he stated, "I literally have a Japanese translated version of a US superhero title in my left hand, and I'm drawing with my right." This inspiration is heavily felt in the character designs and color schemes. Very bright reds and blues. And even one character in Season 2 who looks like he got ripped right out of a 90s extreme comic. It's not just the look of the show that takes inspiration from American comics, but more the setting as a whole. I find that super people in anime and manga tend to take inspiration from stories like Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. That's not to say that's always the case, but my point is this. A world where the central figure in a community of heroes is both in awe and envy of others just seems to be oddly familiar.
The story in this first season is essentially two parts. One at the beginning is seeing Midoriya strengthening himself both physically and mentally in order to begin his path as a hero, and the second half is him starting that path. Only now we get to see the character interacting with a whole group of people who also aspire to this dream, each for their own reason, but ultimately towards the same goal: heroism.
Now I admit I've kind of been heaping praise on this show, more specifically this season, a lot throughout this review. I mean, just short of getting on my knees, and I've been blowing this season since we started. Still, part of reviewing something is noting its flaws. And one of the major ones with this season is basically summed up in a word that I just keep coming back to: introductory. This season is just that. It's meant to get you used to the world, used to the characters, set up some stuff for future seasons, and leave you with a little something to bring you back for more. Now add the fact that this season includes a lot of the tropes you'd find in other shonen, like the underdog hero, the mentor figure, the asshole rival, and the two male and female groupies for the main character. It all starts to sort of blur. However, like they say, the devil's in the details. And what really makes this show stand out is who these characters are beyond their roles, and how they interact with one another. And if there's anything that can make or break a story, is its characters.
When I began this review, overview, what have you, I wanted to answer why people were so drawn to this series. I hope I've given at least some insight into why the series just seems to at least grab you. However, there's still some doubt or hesitation. I'd like to offer my reason why I was drawn to the show. And that is, I really love the characters. By that I don't mean the main characters or even the characters in Izuku's class. I honestly want to see how each character develops and grows alongside our main hero. So much so that I hope we'll get an arc for all of them. Whether or not that's possible is a bit of a stretch, but still I'm hopeful for something. This show also does something that has been showing up a bit more recently, which is mixing up the tropes you see in anime like Naruto or Hitman Reborn, and adds in superhero elements. This is the third show I've seen that done with, and chances are we'll discuss the other two at a later date. But anyway, thank you for watching today and supporting us. This has been Review This, and we'll see you soon.
Hey guys, thanks for watching episode 1 of our new series, Review This, on our new channel, Fun for Hire.
We hope you enjoyed episode 1. We had a lot of fun making it. If you have any comments or suggestions, just leave them below. Like and subscribe.